Internet will
here.
never be the same again.
We're gonna break it.
Okay. All right.
Fortnite.
We are getting ready, guys. We're trying to get everything squared away and everyone in here before we start, so just hang with us. We are getting ready, guys. We're trying to get everything squared away and everyone in here before we start.
I'm working on 3D modeling stuff while we're waiting, so I'm good.
Oh, boy. All right.
Get our good buddy Bond Diesel in here. These are always fun where you're keeping up with chat and Twitch. You're keeping up with everything going on your XSplit or OBS, and you're keeping up with Discord, and you're keeping up with your phone and all the fun things, and it's awesome.
Right?
Like,
What am I forgetting? What am I totally messing up that's going to ruin this all?
Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god.
Did
Yeah, I'll
Bicycle
let you
come
take
back?
care
Or
of all
he is,
that.
yeah. Is Bicycle back yet? He might still be
Yep, I'm
AFK.
still here.
Oh, okay. All right, perfect.
There
Alright.
it is.
Yeah.
But you can't say it like that. Whenever you say Bicycle of Death's name, you have to say Bicycle of Death.
There we go.
Oh, Bond is in here now. I see a no mic beside his name. What did he do? He might have himself muted.
Let's see.
We brought him in here. We don't want to hear what
Bond,
he
we
has to
can
say.
see you, but we can't hear you. You might have turned on Discord before you plugged your mic in. Allah. Allah.
Yalla.
Are you there? Where are you at?
Let's see.
Show me your treasures, Gypsy. Show me your treasures.
Show me treasure, Gypsy.
Uh-oh. Andrew's getting hype in the background. All right. Oh, nope. We're going to get it squared away, guys. No worries.
You're still showing his no mic, Bond.
I'm playing on my Xbox character as we do this, and I don't know how people do the controller. Felt ready to rage quit.
Don't ask me.
Hey.
There he is.
Hey, there he is.
All right.
Forget that message that I just put in there.
I see we've started the controller discussion already.
What? Talking about
Wasn't
the
a
important
discussion?
things,
Let me-
man. The important things.
To be.
These are the important things.
Just kidding.
All right. I haven't heard from... let's see. He posted something on the messages earlier, but we'll see. We'll see if Gamer shows up. But we'll go ahead and roughly get started on this basic casual discussion on Division stuff. So everybody hanging out in chat, everybody on Twitch, and if you're listening to this on YouTube, once I post it, welcome. This is basically our first roundtable discussion about, well, I'm sure you guessed it, the Division 2. We're going to discuss a lot of the things that we've seen so far and give our thoughts, our opinions, speculate on what we think we may see coming to the Division 2. But before I do that, let me introduce the wonderful people that have joined me today. First off, my first guest was recently part of the 2018 Ubisoft Star Player Program. He started such good community things like Words with Bond, Graffiti Wednesday, the Echo Cast, and he also streams here on Twitch. You know him, you love him, Bond Diesel. How you been, buddy? How are you doing?
Doing well. Just got home from eating some pizza.
Eating some pizza with your dad, right? You're eating pizza with your dad, right?
Absolutely.
Nice. Let me ask you real quick. You've got so many different things that you do. Now that you've kind of seen under the hood of the Division 2, the Star Player Program, what do you got coming up in the future? Are you doing more Words with Bond, more streams? What do we got to look forward to from you?
Still the streams. I'll obviously, when the game comes out, I'll probably restart the screenshot stuff. The Words with Bond is kind of dried out just a little bit, but that may come back. Until then, I just started a new YouTube thing where I'm going to be speculating about different specializations that we may get. So that's kind of my new thing. We'll be riding that out for a little bit, but mostly just the same stuff for now.
Awesome. Everyone be on the lookout for that. I'm sure it's going to be wonderful. My next guest was able to travel to Malmo, Sweden as part of the original 15 before the launch of the Division. He was also a member of this year's 2018 Ubisoft Star Player Program. You can generally catch him streaming on Twitch. He kind of leads up the Survival Saturday stuff. Everybody knows him as the Hunter, Mr. Splinter Shield. How are you? How are you doing?
I'm doing well.
It's the Hunter. Awesome.
Yeah, happy to be here, man. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Now that you've kind of seen under the hood as well of the Division 2, are you working on any new cosplays? Are you going to do some summertime Division 2 cosplay stuff?
The research has begun. I haven't actually officially decided on anything yet, but I've been looking at well, I'll tell you this. When I was on the floor at E3 as the Hunter, I ran into Petter, Hamish, and Yannick, and they were like, "Okay, so when can we expect to see a tank cosplay?" And we just kind of laughed about it at the time. And I was going like, now that it's gonna be so much easier to cosplay an agent because I can have short sleeves, I don't have to wear a coat and all the things. I was thinking I was going back to be an agent, but then they got me thinking about that tank. And I was like, I'm doing a little research on that side too. So there's that. Plus, I might as well just talk about this for a second. I am working on kind of mass producing some very high quality Isaac devices for people that want to get them, either for cosplay or just have them on their desk, part of their nerd stuff. A little Isaac brick that'll light up. Be pretty cool.
Absolutely. That's awesome.
I want one already.
Awesome.
Yeah, definitely be on the lookout for that for sure. My next guest is definitely a heavy metal heavyweight in the Division community, along with Terry Spear. I don't think anybody throws the horns better than this guy. He's an excellent streamer, all-around great guy. I'm excited to have him joining us as well. Bicycle of Death, buddy. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. I really, really appreciate it, especially with the crowd that you have here today. I feel a little out of place, but you guys are my friends too, so I love you all.
Absolutely. We're excited to have you on. Talk some Division stuff. That's easy for all of us. All of us love this game. All of us are excited to see what we're going to get. So thank you for joining us. And my last guest and co-host is one of the hardest working guys behind the Division community. I've been fortunate enough to know this guy for over the past year, play a ton of games with him. I'm really excited to have him on and see what he does as he kind of steps out from the shadows and into the spotlight for the Division 2. It's coming along great. He recently co-started the Sherpa Discord that we're using here today for gamers to come, looking for a positive community and help and assistance in a wide variety of games. Major Payne. Major, how's it going, buddy?
Going fantastic, man. Thanks for the intro.
Yeah, I'm excited. We're going to do this thing.
Looking forward to it. It'll be a good time.
Yeah, we're going to do a few of these roundtable discussions. So we're going to have some other community people on as well, some ETF members, star players, and just gamers in general. So all of you out there listening, be on the lookout. I may be hitting you up to join us as well. But first off, let's talk E3. E3 is what it's been almost 2 weeks now. And we got our first just major reveal during the Xbox conference and then the Ubisoft conference. Let's kind of go around and what did you all think about what we saw as far as the trailers and the gameplay? We'll start with Bond. And first off, let's say that Bond and Splinter, you two were at the Ubisoft conference, sitting in the crowd. If you guys could kind of tell us about that experience, being in the crowd, feeling the excitement when you saw that trailer drop. How did that feel? Bond.
So the funny thing is that the Microsoft conference kind of spoiled things just a little bit. But once we got in there, it didn't. It was really cool. Starting off with the Just Dance intro, to see that live was spectacular. And then leading up to, but obviously the highlight for, at least for me, was definitely the Division 2 and the, what I would call a plethora of information that we got. We definitely got more than I expected. It was really cool. It was definitely, for me personally, probably between that conference, the Ubisoft, and between meeting everyone were probably my two highlights from the whole week. It was really, really cool. I was more than excited to be there. That's for sure.
Awesome.
Excellent.
Splinter, how was it being in the crowd,
Yes.
Matt?
Yeah, I'll say I want to chime in after Bond and say the Just Dance, the way they started off with the Just Dance thing. Oh man, that got me so pumped for the whole thing. But one thing that was kind of cool that I'll reveal is the cosplayers that were going to E3.
Mm-hmm.
We got an email about 3 weeks before E3, and they were like, "Okay, guys, this is highly confidential. You cannot share this anywhere. But if you want to cosplay Division 2 at E3, here you go." And they gave us some images, and so we were in intense discussions and going like, "Oh, look, it's short sleeves and sweat stains now. It's going to be like summer or something."
Right.
And we saw the new weapons, and so we were like, "What does this mean?" So it was cool to finally see, like, yeah, you know, it was confirmed as Washington D.C. and summer, and then to see like, okay, the new weapons thing, it's the specializations thing, and you know, to start kind of getting all that fleshed out. We were all getting into town on Sunday and getting settled, and we were like getting ready to go to lunch, and the guides were like, "Hey guys, you might want to watch the Microsoft conference. It's going on right now." We're like, "Oh, okay." And so they were like showing Fallout 76 and some other games. And it started getting boring, so I had turned it off, and I was just kind of talking to the other star players. And then like we were sitting down at lunch, and at the other end of the table, they're like, "Matt, turn it on! Like, are you watching? You should be watching." And there was this like confusion for about 2 minutes because I was like, "Wait, this looks like Division, but it can't be Division, right?" And so finally, I was like, "Okay, it is Division." And I just started watching. But the thing that kind of sucked was we were in a noisy restaurant. So I'm like watching it, and I'm like, whoa, you know, like I'm freaking out. But I can't, you know, like I had to wait till like later on that night. I'm like in my hotel room, and it's quiet, so I could like really pay attention and study the details. But that was so cool to like see the gameplay. And then finally, we, you know, at the conference the next day, we kind of got you know, more of an overview of what, you know, a little bit about the story and more about the gameplay and the details. It's awesome.
Yes.
So as far as the gameplay and stuff, let's talk Washington D.C. Were you guys surprised at all? Is this what we were expecting? Did you have
Bond, why don't you start again?
Yeah.
Oh, me? Okay. Yeah. Now, what's funny is that I think most people know that there was a bit of a leak a while back, but it didn't really seem that credible, to be totally honest, to me. and it had suggested that. But honestly, before that even came out, I had been talking about for a while that I thought it would be Chicago, Philadelphia, Boston, or DC. Three big giant cities that most people know about, and then the head of the country, Boston. And to me, even before there was some suggestion about where it might have been, I still thought that DC was always going to be the best, like narratively, because it just opens up so much. It gives so much opportunity. Where even in New York, it was, it was a new IP, so it was wide open, but. That's more of like a financial and human center, whereas DC is both of those things, but then you add in the governmental side of it, and it just, I mean, from the moment I even wanted it to the moment it was hinted or suggested to the moment it was confirmed, the possibilities are so endless with what they could do. And then the suggestion that we've already gotten about the enemy is on the inside, and then the supposed big twist during the story that Julian has talked about. It's just my mind is just going a million miles a second.
Absolutely. I'll just pick up after what Bond said. When we first got the Division 2 announcement, to be honest, for a while, when I was kind of thinking like, okay, well, what makes most sense? For some reason, I kind of had this sense at first that like, well, when Division 2 comes out, Division 1 will no longer be a thing. And once I realized like, no, it's still going to be supported, I was like, oh, it's definitely going to be in another city. For a while, I was thinking it was still going to be in New York because of that. And once I started thinking like, okay, it's got to be in another city. What city is it going to be? Washington, D.C. made the most sense to me, just from the standpoint of like, okay, Division 1, save New York. Division 2, save the U.S. Like, if you can, just by changing the setting to another city, kind of increase the stakes dramatically, like in the story, from the story position, raise the stakes like that and create like new drama, new experiences, because that's got to be the way to go. Plus, in terms of, like if you think of New York, like it's this iconic city, so many landmarks that are recognized the world over. Same thing with with DC. Like you've got so many monuments and memorials and buildings that are also recognized all over the world. So it made a lot of sense. To be honest, I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about it being like the change of season, the summer thing. I was thinking like, okay, it's gonna be it'll be DC, but it'll be like I figure, Division 1, it starts, I think, like the first or second week of January. If you look at all the different lore details, I'm pretty sure it's starting like first or second week of January. And I feel like with all the stuff that we do in Division 1, it's probably a good month, like 3 to 4 weeks of stuff that we're doing. So I figure, okay, well, February, that's still kind of winter. Like we could, Division 2 could still be winter. And then when I saw, oh no, it's gonna be summer, I was going like, oh geez, I don't know how's that gonna look? How's that gonna feel? Because just when I think Division, I think cold, I think winter. And so now, having seen all the things for Division 2, I'm like, okay, I'm on board. I can deal with this. I'm excited. New setting, new season. Let's go.
Awesome.
Definitely.
Bicycle, what did you think? Were you expecting DC? Were you expecting we may go somewhere else? What were your thoughts?
Well, when I heard that it's been announced, there were some pictures flying around on the internet, and I kind of stayed away from Twitter because I wanted to see the gameplay reveal video. And when it started and I saw the jungle, I was like, oh man, we're going to South America, we're going after Peter. and then it opened up to DC, and I was like, oh, you guys, you got me good.
I'm right there with you on that one.
Got me as well.
When E3 was going on, I was working out in the middle of nowhere, so I have to confess I haven't seen too much other than what people have posted. on Twitter with pictures, and I've been reading up on it, but I haven't seen any of the E3 footage or anything like that. And I'm just excited with what I've seen with the downed aircraft, with what the map looks like. I have so many different questions about how things are going to be laid out. And originally, when we found out that Aaron Keener was probably in South America, I was like, "Oh man, Ubisoft, don't rehash the Ghost Recon map and stuff like that." Because I love the publisher, I love the studios, but with the shooting games, they do rehash some of the stuff. And I was like, I hope they don't. So when it was in DC, I was impressed. I had a little nerd swoon going on, if you will.
Major, what did you think? Were you expecting DC? Like when, kind of going back to that first question with the trailers that we saw at E3 for Xbox and Ubisoft. How did you feel? Were you expecting DC? Were you surprised? What were your thoughts?
I'm kind of right there with Bond. I kind of have my 3 cities I thought it might be, and one of mine also, and then DC was on my list. And for me, DC was on my list because of Fallout 3. Like that post-apocalyptic setting in Fallout 3, it just kind of was always like, it would be so cool to revisit that in a different way. And then, like you said, when you come out of the jungle in the trailer and then DC's right in front of you, it was just like, oh man, here we go. And it was so exciting to see the way they kind of spun it. Like not being totally post-apocalyptic, but definitely an overtaken city. It was everything I was hoping it would be, and I'm hoping it looks even better as time goes on.
I know we were kind of watching. We were watching together for the Xbox, and I kind of had an idea that we may see something during the Xbox conference. And I remember us watching it together, and as soon as that original trailer started to drop, we were in there, you, me, a few other people. It just went totally silent, and I was fanboying the entire time, like, oh my goodness, we're getting a peek at it. And I was kind of concerned. I was like, is this what we're going to see during the Ubisoft conference as well? Are we going to get any more? And we got more. We got gameplay. I was so excited. Washington, D.C., from the trailers, from the gameplay, looks amazing. I kind of thought, there might be a possibility of Atlanta, just with the CDC being there. But I think Washington, as Splinter was saying, made a lot of sense. And I'm the same. I'm excited to see what they do with it. I'm ready to get my hands on this beta. As far as the beta goes, Bon and Matt, you guys were able to test that out. And I wanted to ask you, as far as the beta, was it instantly familiar to you as far as the controls for the beta? As far as like player movement, gunplay, what were your initial thoughts about the beta when you got to test it out? I know, Bon, I know you were sitting there and Hamish came up and it looked like he was going to interview you during the stream, but he didn't because it looked like you were so like tunnel visioned on what you were doing. You looked over just for a second and Hamish kind of walked away. But what were your guys' initial thoughts of the beta?
I don't want to talk about my almost chance to be featured that week. But other than that, no bitterness, I promise. It was really cool. Now, the one thing I will clarify, I'm not sure that that's going to be the beta. I actually suspect the beta may be more than what we have shown so far. Or what we've seen.
I think so too. Julian said
but
we've done the alpha, and so I suspect that what was shown at E3 was the alpha.
Yeah.
Right. But that said, when it comes to the controls and stuff like that, the thing that leading up to all of this and leading up to the announcement, I had been telling people is that I've been telling people to expect a very, very different game, but expect it to be very familiar. And I will say that for the most part, that's how I would describe the way the game felt with the controls and stuff like that. I felt, now what they had us doing, they had us on these like $5,000 rigs playing, but they had Xbox controllers hooked up to it. So for me, it was easy. I was used to it. Obviously, it didn't have auto aim enabled, which was fine. It still felt really smooth, the aiming and stuff. But the movement definitely feels, I think the best way to describe it is heavy. And I know I've seen people comparing the way it looks to Wildlands. And I've been fairly vocal about my thoughts of Wildlands. I would not say that's. I don't think so at all. What I actually compared it to, and this may be a dumb thing for other people, but it worked for me, was Killzone on the PlayStation. The way that your character
Okay.
felt like it had weight and momentum.
Mhm.
That's the thing is, and even from coming home and jumping back on Division 1, I definitely feel like I've kind of reinforced that description, is that the new system is extremely familiar. The controls work essentially the same. The biggest difference being that the current Division 1, your character kind of feels light and feathery to me. It's very easy to quickly move. Oh, chat. That's an interesting watcher that we just got. The It's heavier in a really, really good way. You feel like you're controlling a human being with 50 pounds of equipment on them. But the cover system, I think, felt pretty much the same. The aiming, poor Armor for Core, I gave him the worst description of how the aiming feels different ever. But just saying it felt smoother or something. But it's hard to describe, but even using an Xbox controller with no auto aim on a PC, it just felt, it really does. It feels different. It feels like each shot matters a lot more because you do so much more damage. And so you're not just your lightweight M4 with stability mods or with Striker, just holding the trigger down and shooting 66 rounds in a row. You've got a 40 round mag with the extended mag, and you're burst firing because each of those shots does so much more damage, and you need to use that time a lot better because you will die much quicker. With just the way it felt. But no, it felt extremely familiar, but definitely different in a really good way.
Awesome.
Excellent.
Matt, before we get your opinions on the beta, we have another guest joining us. Hopefully you guys will be able to hear him and his mic is working. One of our other guests was an ETF Bravo member along with myself. He traveled to Red Storm Studios in Cary, North Carolina, where we did work on Last Stand, Stolen Signal, and Update 1.4. He also streams on YouTube Gaming and just recently started streaming on Twitch as well, Gamer Insanity. Gamer, hopefully you can hear me. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. How are you?
There he is. There he is. Awesome.
Yeah, I'm here. I've had a lot of stuff going on this morning.
Dude,
so
dude, life in general. It's always
Absolutely.
it's an adventure. You're not too far behind. Real quick, I'm gonna just get your opinions on a few things that we've talked about already. As far as just what we saw at E3 with the Xbox conference, the Ubisoft conference, your initial reaction, and us going to Washington D.C. What were your opinions and thoughts from what we got at E3?
one of the biggest things that I'm really excited about is trying to be in a new setting. Going to Washington, there's no better place than being in the main part of America right there. I mean, if they're going to try and take everything down, why not do it in perhaps the most important city in America? So I'm really excited about that. It's going to be nice to get away from all the snow in New York and have a different, the summer feel, and see how that really plays into survival in the future. I really can't wait to see how that works out. So there's a lot of things I'm looking forward to.
Awesome. Absolutely. Let's get back to, we were talking about the beta that Bond and Splinter Shield were able to take part in. Splinter, let me get your thoughts. How did you feel about the beta when you got to check it out?
I'm going to echo a lot of the things that Bond said, but let me just explain to everybody that I'm PC only. I don't even have, we have a Nintendo Wii, but that's mostly just for my son's, his games. So I don't play on Xbox or PlayStation, but I'm familiar with the controller. I've had an Xbox in the past. And as somebody who has pretty much played Division exclusively on PC, I picked up that controller and it felt very familiar to me. For as much that is different in the gameplay, when you start kind of breaking down all the things, yes, I agree with Bond. Your movement, you kind of feel heavier. You feel like there is mass and weight and heft to your character and his gear. Whereas, I would also agree, in the current Division, it doesn't feel as realistic that way. You're running everywhere, and you just seem to be so light and fast, which is, it's kind of a good feeling. But it certainly was not a bad feeling. It was adding to the immersion and the realism to me, the way the character moved. And so like that, and the aiming, and even like the healing and everything, it was different, but it felt so familiar. Like I was not like, ooh, I didn't feel like I had a learning curve to get over to pick up that controller and play the game.
Nice. Something that I did want to ask you guys, because you were able to play the beta, and I picked it up on one of the streams that Division Game did. I think it was maybe one of the last day streams, where it was basically Petter and Hamish and Yannick and Julian Garrity. They were testing out the demo. They were playing the demo, and it's something that I caught. It's very small. If chat wants me to find that part of the clip in the stream, but there was a point where I believe Hamish was using one of his skills, the drone, and he made a comment about the drone wasn't focused on anything, and I think it maybe was Yannick. It was Yannick that said you need to look at the enemy and hit RB so it will focus on that enemy, which kind of plays into some of the thoughts that I've had as far as skills. I think, I don't know, but I think skills in the Division 2 may be a little different the way that we interact with them than it has been in the Division 1, where obviously skills are very beneficial to us, but is it going to be something where it takes more skill to use those skills? You have to interact with them in a very specific way to get the benefit of those skills. It's not like in the past where you just drop it and let it go and it does its thing. There may be more to that, and I don't know if you guys can speak to that, but it's just something that I kind of picked up and wanted to get your thoughts on.
Bon, why don't you lead off again?
So what I'll say is, and Splinter, you may know better than me, but there's a part of this conversation I don't think has been shown publicly. So I'm gonna reserve. I don't think I can. But what I will say about the drone, I'm under the impression that the drone, and I know it's only been a week, but I can't remember. So I know for a fact that when your drone is deployed, it pops off your back, goes up in the air above you. I know for a fact that when you are looking at an enemy, a little, like you were saying, a little RB button symbol would pop up beside whatever enemy you're looking at. Oh, cool. Hey, Thylander gave me quote unquote permission. Yay. You can target specific people. Now, one thing, and if he has a second, he may be able to answer this. I don't know if there's like a small proximity that the drone would automatically attack people or not. I don't remember seeing that or not. It was all kind of a blur a little bit, but I do know for a fact, yeah. So with that particular skill, you could target specific people in the distance. Now, what he kind of talked about in chat right there real quick was that I believe, so specifically the airburst that he's talking about in his comment there, the more powerful skills are going to require some kind of manual input. So you may have an airburst that can take someone out in one hit or do a lot of damage, maybe not one hit, but you have to designate, like you have to control where it's going to affect, which also allows the potential victim to save themselves or not be impacted by that skill. Whereas there may be lesser powered skills, or maybe skills that don't do damage, and this is me kind of starting to speculate a little bit, that maybe will control themselves, but they aren't going to be like one hit kills on people. So that if you kind of have that balance of, you can have some manual controls. See, drone will work. Okay, so he kind of answered my drone question about the proximity. So it kind of seems like there's going to be a balance. So something I had suggested back with Division 1, which I understood probably couldn't be implemented, is at least on the Xbox, if you hit up on the D-pad, you used to be able to target specific enemies. It'd put a little tag on them so that your whole team could see. I had always said that I wish that the drone or the seeker mine and the turret, that you had to tag whoever it would attack, so that there was some manual input in. This obviously isn't that. Well, the drone kind of is. It's basically what you're doing with the drone. But I really think there's going to be a lot more probably power out of some of the skills, but it's not going to be a guaranteed hit. And I think that's gonna one, give a lot more utility to electronics people or people who want to use those skills, but it's also going to balance it by giving people a chance to evade. It's kind of going into the whole mantra of the rock paper scissors that we've always wanted, especially from PvP, but maybe haven't had quite yet.
So eliminate the auto targeting type skills and make you actually be
For the more powerful ones,
Right.
sure.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, so I'll chime in and just say it looks like Division 2 is going to it's going to reward skillful gameplay, I think is what I'm trying to say. Now just to take kind of half a step back, when you were saying the drone, Weezer, which drone were you referring to?
I think the one that Hamish is just like it looks just like a gunner drone, just like one that's red laser pointing a specific target that he's looking at.
The one that was flying.
Yes,
okay.
yes.
Not the okay. I just want to make sure. I want to see if that was what you're talking about, or if you were talking about like the Seeker Mine drone or whatever.
Right. No, he's using the air drone.
Okay. Yeah. So there was that, and it was in the demo, and they showed a lot of the demo. So I'm pretty sure I can. There's not going to be any repercussions to talk about this, but they had the Seeker Mine. Like you saw the Seeker Mine in the Microsoft video, where it like goes streaking across the that puddle of water and spraying all the water.
Right.
So they have Seeker Mine in Division 2, but it is used differently. You don't just drop it and just auto targets it. You have to target it and do things.
Right.
Good.
Yeah, I can see.
Good change.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what Frederick is kind of saying in chat, that the Airburst Seeker requires ground targeting. It can seek enemies since it's more powerful Seeker variant. So that's really interesting. Gamer and Bicycle, what do you guys think of that? As players that haven't been able to try that out, does that appeal to you? More powerful skills being where you have to interact with them to use that ability. Is that something that you like, that change? Bicycle, let me start with you.
I absolutely love it. With the way the Tom Clancy games feel, and with the way that the Division felt, Division definitely felt more RPG than shooter when I first started playing it, and over its progression, it seemed to progress into an arcade type game in a sense, mainly with face tanking and all that. And with the way the player seems to move with what I've seen and how people have described it, I'd say that I'd describe it as tactical. There's more of a tactical feel with how we're going to be playing the Division 2, and I can say the same thing for the skills too, with how those are being described and with what I've seen. You have more control over them. That's gonna really help in PvE situations. It's gonna help in PvP situations too, like when you need to focus down a target. And with that, I think there's going to be a lot more strategy in PvP. And PvP as well in the entire game. And I had a thought, and I just completely lost it. What was it? I'll come back to it later if I think of it.
Sounds good.
That happens.
Gamer, what do you think? Are you excited about that? I'm thinking that's going to be a really cool idea, especially as far as the engagement in PvP, and as someone that takes part in both of those PvE and PvP aspects. What do you think about more powerful skills requiring us to interact with them in a different way?
I think being able to have more powerful skills down a skill tree is extremely important. Not just having the mods on skills like we have now, but to have completely different alterations of the skills altogether. Like, say, for instance, the chem launcher. Like, we still really don't know if we're going to have a sticky bomb. So maybe that could be, like, the final version of that. But, for those who have played Gears of War out there, where you have, like, the active reload, where you can get that little bit more powerful reload by reloading at just the right time, I'd like to see something like that, where if you're going to have manual inputs on your skills, it would be something similar to that mechanic. So it's not fully taking away from the immersion of what you're doing, but you still have like a little mini game that you have to pay attention to in order to try and activate that more powerful skill.
Yeah.
It would really make PvP still really engaging, but you have something really small that you have to try and make sure that you have to make happen to ensure that you get that more powerful skill. We'll have to see how it all works out.
Yeah.
Can I throw something in real quick?
Yeah, Bond.
That I think is really important during this part of the conversation is to think about. So I've seen a lot of people being really worried that, oh no, PvP is going to be all cover based, and I can't leave cover or else I'm just going to die. And I've seen some concern from people that it's going to be this super slow, kind of boring PvP or even PvE to some point. The thing about like what we're talking about right now with like say the Seeker Mine skill where it targets a specific area, it may be worth considering that maybe the air burst isn't always to kill people, but maybe it's to displace them.
Yeah, I mean, even in the demo when he throws the grenade off of the Air Force One to just try and get someone out of cover, it could be used for that same purpose.
Precision now, so we may have a lot more cover usage even in PvP, but now we're finally going to have what I think was originally intended from our current skill set of this idea of you can stay in cover, but there's going to be people that are going to be able to get you out of cover using their skills. In the current game, since no one uses cover, it doesn't matter, right? But with this new way of using like this airburst Seeker Mine, you're going to see it coming your way and you're like, well, do I take my chances by popping out of cover and trying to shoot back, or do I try to eat this Seeker Mine? And so with all the people who are so worried about PvP devolving into this boring, completely cover-based situation, I think this specific choice in the game is going to mix that up.
Right. Well, it's interesting you bring that up, and that kind of leads me into my next question for you and Splinter that were able to take part in the demo. Did it feel different? Like if you decided to play in cover, did you feel like your time to kill as far as your armor bar and cover made it easy? I know you guys were playing PvE, so you got to take that into consideration, but just that gameplay, and if you're thinking about PvP, did it feel like staying in cover and protecting that armor bar increased your survivability greatly? And if you got out of that cover and you started taking damage to your armor, could you tell a big difference, especially once you lost that armor bar and it starts tacking off into your health bar? Could you feel a big difference playing in cover and keeping that armor up as opposed to kind of a running gun face tank style?
So the impression I was under and what I believe I was told is that there is actually no difference. There's no modifier when you're out of cover.
So
it's simply the time
amount
to
of
kill
armor that falls off compared to the amount of health that falls off is the exact same. It doesn't change.
No. Your health is like, I don't know exactly, because it was such a blur. But your armor could take a decent amount of shots, but your health, it was kind of like Halo. When you run out of armor, or your shield in Halo back in the day, your health was very little. So they are definitely not the same like pool of hit points. It's a significantly faster death once you're out of armor. But the thing I was under the impression of, or I believe what I was told, is that right now, at least in what we played, when an enemy was shooting at you, an AI enemy, whether you were out of cover or in cover, it was this, you would take the same amount of damage. The thing being, though, at least in PvE, is that I definitely, at least from my experience, didn't notice that we weren't getting 100% laser accuracy from the enemies. The way they were much less, it felt much less cheap when we were fighting the enemies and that, and the way they react, this is a whole different discussion, so I won't go on about it, but the way they react to being shot is completely different than the current game, like night and day. And then the way in the way that they shoot at you, they aren't hitting you with every single shot with a shotgun from a mile away. It feels better.
Nice.
Not to cut anyone off, but just to stay on the topic of health and armor, when you heal, from what I was told, you have to hold it down now. Is that right?
Yes.
It's 3 seconds, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
And can you do it while moving? Is it similar to like Fortnite and PUBG where you can't move at all
Can't move at all.
while you're healing? Or can you move freely?
Vaughn, I don't remember. Did you ever try to heal while moving?
That was a choice I was told that they made. It could always change.
Yeah,
But the idea is that to heal, you have to make a choice. You have to get in the cover, and it has to be a purposeful move to heal.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that was my
No
understanding, is that you
insta-heals.
needed to be in cover in order to heal. So,
Yeah,
Well, I
I'm not
think
sure
that's
if
been
like out of
the
cover
point.
you just kneel down or something. I'm not sure about that.
yeah,
I think that's
I-
been one of the big things about burst healing from the PvP
Yes.
side of the coin, and I mean that seems like a concerted effort to neutralize that and make people more conscious of bar and toughness.
well, maybe
Yeah.
maybe
I'd
it's
agree.
just me, but it seems like, a lot of people talked about the addition of this armor bar over our health bar as far as what we knew it in the Division 1. And we all know that we could get those super tanky builds in the Division 1 where it took you forever to deplete that health bar. But to me, maybe I'm wrong, but to me it seems like maybe the armor bar is not what they added. The armor bar just basically was our health bar from the original one, and now this lower health bar is that small bit of survivability in order to get
Sure.
into cover and heal up our armor. So armor is kind of like our old health bar in a way to me. It's like I want to protect that armor
Yeah.
bar, and once that's gone, it's going to be real soon before I'm in the down state and they take away this health. So I need to get into cover and heal up. But I'm excited to try it. I think it's going to make
So-
for some good.
I think it's going to make PvP really interesting, because if you see
Yeah.
someone without armor, who are you going to go after?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
that's what
Right.
I'm thinking as well. Absolutely.
Right.
And something, not to be like the accuracy Nazi or anything, but it just is because it's something that I didn't actually realize at the time. It was something I didn't realize until later, was when you're healing, you're not actually healing,
Mhm.
you're changing armor plates.
Right.
hmm
And I
Yeah.
thought that
Yeah.
was, I was like, I love that. That feels so much more realistic.
Mhm.
I remember actually when the Dark Zone trailer came out for Division 1 back in 2015,
Mhm.
and we saw them doing the multiplayer thing in the Dark Zone, and they were using like the insta heal ability where you like shoot the green nanites or whatever.
Mhm.
Like like healing grenades is what actually, yeah, no, it was healing grenades in that demo. It wasn't the sticky bomb launcher. It was actually like a healing grenade that they threw. And I remember everything of Division we had seen up to that point had seemed so realistic, so on point, so immersive. When I saw the healing grenade, I was actually kind of disappointed. I was like, that doesn't seem like very realistic compared. I mean, yes, I understand it's like an RPG game, but that doesn't. It just kind of jarred me out of the immersion that I was feeling for the rest of the game. So when I saw that this is the change, I was like, oh, I'm loving this. But to answer your initial question, the one that Bon was answering, going back to how I was saying before, as a PC player playing on a controller, how it all felt so familiar. When I was playing the demo, I was very conscious that, like, okay, you need to be in cover, but I was like, you know what? I'm gonna push this. I'm just gonna push this a little bit and see what happens, basically. And so I kind of played the way I would usually play again in PvE, like in Division 1 style. And yeah, they focused on me. They put me down. It just in terms of the health and armor question. I was like, yeah, cover is going to be much more of a thing, but it wasn't like I couldn't dash around between covers or occasionally push when there was an opportunity.
Mhm.
It's not like anytime you pop out of cover, you're just instantly dead. Like, there was opportunities to open up and you can push and be a little more aggressive, but you have to see that opportunity. You have to have that situational awareness.
Right. And I think, obviously we're just speculating about PvP and how that's going to feel, but I think Gamer Insanity, you hit on something that I've talked about a lot. I think being absolutely like what Splinter Shield is saying there, the situational awareness in PvP as far as it pertains to protecting your armor bar and deciding which engagements to take on and which engagements might not work out in your favor is something that we didn't really have that much in the first one. I loved the beta of the Division when we could only hit, I think it was level 8. We didn't have gear sets, we didn't have all that. So mid to long range combat felt really good. You couldn't just run up in people's faces back then because we were somewhat on an equal playing field, but you would get taken down really quick by somebody that was playing more tactical, more strategical. And so I'm excited to see how that plays out in PvP with skills that we have to interact with in a very specific way. And you know, if you want to run out there and you want to get close up, you know, up close and personal with someone, then you're taking on that risk of having to do it in a tactical way with your movement. You know, now there's a lot of talk about strafing and the chicken dance, that kind of stuff being toned down a lot. So movement, as far as engagement is concerned, is going to be a lot more tactical. Am I willing to move from point A to point B? How is that going to damage my armor? Are they going to have line of sight on me? All of those things I think is going to make for a lot more interesting PvP.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the fact that somebody can focus on playing a sniper role is going to be amazing, because that's something we've never really had in the Division. Is that long range engagement specialist? There wasn't a place for them because they would just get melted, and for them being able to sit back and cover and actually support, you know, a couple guys push forward fighting from cover is going to be an amazing change.
Yeah.
Well, not to mention, even if you put a guy down at long range, he could still res himself, and that's not going to be a thing in Division 2.
Yeah. Well, I
Like,
think
he will bleed out.
Yeah, I think the guys in chat are saying it. Set Rep Rob, Joker Unique are saying, you know, aggro is something you have to manage during PvE and PvP. As far as that's concerned, Joker Unique saying easy targets out of cover, pull aggro. So in a team aspect, if you're fighting another team and one guy pops out of cover, then you're going to be communicating with your team to, hey, focus this guy, he's out, and we don't have to worry about shooting around cover. We can just focus on him. So I like that idea. As far as oh no, go ahead. Somebody.
To those of you who actually played it, when you went down, if you went down at all, did any of you try out that stem bleeding option?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Does it allow you to move while do that, or do you have to stay
The
stationary?
choice you make. You get to move, or you get to stem the bleeding, or you can give up.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you have to make a choice, which I like. The more choices, the better, in my personal opinion.
Yeah.
And
So
that's
it's kind of
really
like the balance
that's
situation in Siege, kind of like the
Yeah, it's very similar.
exactly.
okay,
Nice.
excellent. I like that.
As far as the healing, let's talk about that. You know, I know we've seen like replacing those the armor plates and how that's going to heal up your armor and your health. Skills that we have in Division 1. Do we think we're going to see a return to support stations, to first aid, where we just burst heal and get all of our stuff? In my opinion, I think some of those things that we've been used to in the original one, I think they're going to go away. I think from what I've seen and what I hope, I think they're kind of moving towards a more somewhat realistical and tactical engagement as far as PvP. So do we think we're going to see a return to those support stations and those healings, or do we think those are a thing of the past?
One of the things that I kind of hope happens with the support station in the Division 2, it's not necessarily a circle that will constantly heal you. It becomes a station that has a limited number of med kits that you and your teammates may be able to go pick up. Like, it'll have 4, and you can each go run and grab a med kit, and then you automatically have an auto instant heal that you can use whenever you want.
Yeah.
That way, it's not something that's just constantly.
I don't know about that, just because remember, we're not doing. We didn't have insta heals in the demo at all,
right?
And when we were you know, air quotation marks healing, we weren't actually healing. We were changing out armor plates. Right. So I think they're kind of going more towards a model of like, okay, so when, you know, traditionally in a game, when you're in a gunfight and your health is going down because, you know, either shields are going down or you're losing hit points or something, and so they're saying, okay, now in Division 2, it's going to be armor. It's not going to be like health. because in real life you can't really take multiple bullets.
Right.
You take a couple bullets and you're just down.
Right.
So they're trying to make it much more realistic. But to answer your question, like, what do we think we're going to see? If there still are support stations, I think it's going to be very different. If it's something where it affects your health, like maybe if you have a support station down, you don't need to stem your bleeding and you can move. I don't know. It might be something like that, but I don't. Yeah, it'll if it's still there, it'll be different, but it might not be there. We just don't know yet.
Well, let me ask Bicycle of Death. You play a lot of Rainbow Six Siege that me and Major have just recently gotten into, and an operator like Rook, where he can throw a bag down that has armor in it instead of health. Do we think that's maybe a possibility where you can have instead of a support station, maybe an armor pack where we can put it down, and each player can, once you use the armor replacements that you have, possibly a skill where we can throw it down where we can refill that armor. Is that a possibility instead of health? Because I agree with Splinter. I don't think we're going to get that burst healing that we had in the original. But maybe that's a road they go. I know once you kill certain NPCs, they give you armor plates, but do we think maybe there's a skill for those longer time engagements where we can throw an armor bag down where we can replenish our armor? What do you think, Bicycle?
I think we'll definitely see something like that, and not just something that, again, not the radius, but something that you'll actually have to go up to and interact with, and it will, it's not something that you'll just go up to and be like, press X and you'll get it. You'll actually have to hold X and interact with it with an animation. So there'd probably be again, going back to how tactical this game is feeling compared to the Division 1. You're going to have to be cautious of where you put that and where your teammates are going to have to interact with it at. And not necessarily just armor plates, but maybe even ammo refills, maybe even an area where you can change which grenade you have. And that's pretty much all I have on that one.
Yeah.
Well, I could even see it being something like a kind of like you deploy it, and it would be like an active net, basically, that could stop incoming grenades. Like instead of a station, it would be like a laser type thing.
Trophy system.
There you go.
It could be a
very
situation where
similar.
you drop a support
Yes,
station
thank you.
and they
That's
could
the word I
drop
was
you a
looking
supply
for.
drop in game.
Yeah, I can see that.
That's a possibility.
That's something that could easily be done.
Yeah, I think over the next coming months to see what other skills that we get is going to be interesting, and how we interact with those things like that. Things like the armor station, if that's a possibility. I mean, we've seen our air drones, we've seen our seeker drones, we've seen the Hive, which I think looks really cool, and the Chem gun. Do we think we'll see some skills return from Division? And if so, what do you think we're going to see return, or how we might use that skill? And if not, do you guys have any ideas for new skills? Gamer, let me start with you. What do you think? Do you think we're going to see some stuff from the old game, or some new skills? What's your thoughts?
I really hope that they try to take a look at some of the signatures that we had in the Division 1 and try and make those part of the skill tree in some way for the Division 2. Take out recovery link altogether, because that would just be completely pointless with the way that they're trying to make things now when it comes to trying to use armor and trying to make things more realistic with your survivability. But the idea of having something like tack link and having the ability to do a little bit of extra damage for a short period of time could be like an end goal on a skill tree for a certain specialist. I think that would be really interesting to see. Not only that, when it comes to brand new skills, there's been a lot of talk that there is a fourth specialist in the game, and it looks like they may have actually revealed it in the initial trailer, but we'll have to wait and see. A lot of people are saying that
I think there's gonna be a lot more than
flamethrower
just
in this game
3 or
for us to finally
4.
use.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
I think we'll end up having a lot more than just 3 or 4 specialists.
Well, I think that's something you can look at the Siege model again too. And as we get a DLC or updates, will we get 2 or 3 specializations or something to that effect. Like kind of how they released the classified sets. We see two or three specializations every 3 months, like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
With each episode, you get 1 or 2 brand new specializations, and at that rate, by the time year 1's done, you have up to 8 maybe that you can have
Yeah.
a full raid doing each different type.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
very interesting. I mean that math works out. I like the idea of that. Bon, what do you think? Skills from the old game, ideas for skills for the new game. Do you think we'll see some? If so, what would you like to see returned, or ideas for new ones?
So one of the first videos I did on YouTube, it's actually the video that kicked off my kind of working relationship with Thailander, because he commented on it, was I did a whole video of, I think it was literally called what the skills were supposed to do, or what they were supposed to be, or something like that.
Yeah.
And what was funny is I basically explained what I thought they were supposed to do in the cover-based game, and his response to me was, so we made you too powerful to use these skills, which arguably that was true. But 2 skills I think that we may see that people may have forgotten even existed was the mobile cover and smart cover. And
I use mobile and stolen signal every time, man.
of course, yeah. But if you think about all this talk that we're having, what the little vertical slice we saw and that we got to play, all I can think about during that whole demo was, man, I wish I could shoot some smart cover, because we're all on these like 3 or 4 pieces of cover kind of close to each other. And if you even think about the current smart cover variants, I believe one heals you a little bit, so you can have one that gives you a little bit of armor back if you're in it. I think both of those are going to have a lot of utility, because the mobile cover, especially if you're in an area where you need to flank in PvE, especially, but maybe even PvP, but there's no cover where you want to flank, well, you can make some cover. And I think for sure that we'll see those again. Obviously, probably different, the way, specifically, but I think we'll see the idea. I wouldn't be surprised if we see every skill back in some capacity. I could be wrong, and it may be changed significantly. And then for like new skills, I mean, the world is kind of, the world's out there. I feel like they have so much freedom now with how much they are trying to change the meta of the game. The little gas launcher, that was quietly one of my favorite things to use, was that little gas launcher. And then all the different types of variants you could have of that particular skill. I mean, those possibilities are almost endless. But yeah, I mean, I guess it's hard for me to decide on any particular new skill we may get, but I definitely think that we may see those cover-based skills come back and be more important than ever.
Major, what do you think? Is there any that you want to see come back, or how?
Are you talking to Splinter? Who are you talking to?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, Matt, go ahead. What do you think?
The one I'm most curious, when I think about it, I'm not sure. The one I'm really curious about is like Pulse. Are we going to see the Pulse come back or not? Or is it going to be there, but it's going to be very different now? Because I'm just like, I feel like I don't have enough data to even hypothesize yet. But just in terms of knowing, like we know that cover is important, and that with grenades and other skills you can bump people out of cover. And so yeah, I don't know, like we're gonna want or need to mark people so we can kind of keep tracking a little better with the Pulse, or are they just gonna have like like the drone that flies around? The drone just you upgrade your drone and then it kind of automatically marks all the enemies on your little mini map for you, so you kind of know what direction all the threats are in. So maybe they don't bring back Pulse as its own thing, but you can kind of get Pulse on some of the other abilities as you upgrade them. I've been thinking about that one a lot, and I don't really have any good answer yet. in terms of like, I could say like, oh yeah, I think it's coming back, but I don't have anything to base it on. Or I could say I don't think it's coming back, but I don't have anything to base it on. So I don't know. That's just one that I've been thinking about a lot about lately.
Yeah, I like that idea that you're throwing out there, and I've had that idea as well. I think that would be really cool. The faction that we know that's coming with the new Suns, but if there was a faction that was much stronger in their abilities and as far as tactical combat, if you had that drone, that air drone that could mark those enemies because they're not popping out of cover. They're not running around and doing stupid things like the factions that we have in the division now. But it was a much slower, more cover combat-based fight. Having a drone that could mark those targets, like you said, where in a team aspect we can coordinate, we can flank, we can do those kind of things, would be interesting. Major, what do you think? Skills.
Well, I mean, you've played with me long enough to know that I've been a tactician pretty much since it became a thing. So the skills have and personally, the way they changed the Seeker where you have to control it, I'm totally in favor of. If it's going to give me a skill that can deal a ton of damage to a player, then I'm all for that. I mean, we all remember back when there was the one-shot sticky bombs way back. Mm-hmm. And then we all remember the nightmare that was the one-shot airburst in, Last Stand in the DZ. And the big complaint was they don't require any skill to use. You seek them out there, boom, they find the player, mm-hmm. and in the meantime, you can be a team. You don't have to do anything to earn that kill. Mm-hmm. But I'm really excited to see the potential return of a one-shot type Seeker mine in exchange for me having to control it from cover. Mm-hmm. So basically, I'm useless to my team. 2-4 seconds it might take me to move Seeker mine, but if I do it right, then my team's going to benefit from it. So I'm really digging that change.
Absolutely. Like even if the guy moves from cover, you can be like, okay, I'm targeting this guy. Watch him. He starts running out of cover to try and run for some other cover, and that's when they down him. Mm-hmm. And even though like maybe your Seeker mine doesn't get him, like you help the team.
Right. Mm-hmm. And that could be interesting in a few different ways, especially if there's some type of animation for your player for doing that. Like, Major, if you're in cover and I'm on an opposing team and I see you doing some type of skill animation that I know is about to really hurt my team, then now we can focus. I can say that guy is doing something that I know that's going to hurt my team. So somebody needs to rush him. Somebody needs to do something. Throw a grenade mm-hmm. to disrupt mm-hmm. Him interacting with that skill. And as far as, I don't know, Splinter, you and Bond might be able to talk to that. Is that a thing? Like as far as you changing out your armor, and maybe it might apply to skills as well when you're interacting with them. Can you disrupt that? Can you throw grenades? Can you shoot those players and it knock them out of that animation or that time?
Kind of stop them from doing what they're doing?
Right.
All that I remember was that grenades would bump me out of cover, and I think if I was trying to change out my armor plate and a grenade went off nearby, it would stop me from doing that as well.
Okay.
That's all that I remember. Bond, do you remember anything like that?
I believe in the discussions I had and through the demo that I believe gunfire and explosives would knock you out of both the armor plate change and like out of cover. So that's like when it comes to PvP, that could be a big thing where someone's behind cover changing their armor plate, but if you can get some kind of effect on them, it will stop them from being able to do that and make it able to put them out. Right. But if I remember correctly, yes, I believe that the same way that you can interrupt the enemies, and I didn't see this, and in my brain I can't confirm it, but I was under the impression that there's even the possibility, like you were saying, of if you're in the middle of throwing a grenade, that kind of the way that the Grenadiers in Division 1, you knock them out of their motion, that it may work the same. But I don't remember that. I don't know. I can't remember. But there's something in my brain that's telling me that.
Yeah, Frederick touched on it in one of the streams that you could basically do that with the NPCs, and I would imagine you could probably do it with players as well, as far as shooting grenades and stuff from players as soon as they're getting ready to throw them, or the animation of them throwing them, stopping it from affecting you. But that kind of ties into what Gamer Insanity was saying. Like that's really interesting, the way PvP is going to work, where we can disrupt those skills, or we can disrupt that armor change, and how that's going to correlate to PvP combat. It's going to be
Paper,
Yeah,
scissors,
I had
baby.
a
absolutely
pretty crazy theory for the Dark Zone myself. Whenever we get there.
Well, let me touch real
Oh.
quick. Let me touch real quick. That's the last two topics that I have, and if Major has any questions, or you guys have any topics you want to talk about, real quick, let me ask. As far as weapon attachments, it's something that they talked about that now won't take up inventory space, and they'll be unlocked during player progression. How do you guys feel about not having to grind for those, and how those are going to work? Are you excited for that change? What do you think? Let me start with Bicycle, and we'll run through you guys real quick.
I absolutely love it. Most of us went through with all of the high capacity magazines and stuff like that. They came across the vendors and you were able to buy them, and it would take up like 3 inventory slots per character basically. And just having that not eat up my inventory, I am a stickler on a clean inventory. On games that have the whole Tetris format, I can sit there and tinker with it for minutes upon minutes, and the fact that that's not in there anymore makes me feel so good. And I also like the fact that I'll finally be able to have a hand stop on a Super 90 that irritates me about the first game.
Absolutely. Bond, what do you think? How do you feel about not having to grind for those weapon attachments?
Did you say me? Sorry.
Yeah, Bond, go ahead. Sorry.
Love it.
I'm just
So
glad they're not part of my bag anymore.
Yeah, the thing I love about it is the way I was saying before, is that the more choices that you have to make, the better. Because now there's actually going to be choices with attachments, because each one had a positive and a negative.
Right.
And in the ones that they had were tentative. So if you watch the demo and see each attachment and how it worked out, I wouldn't necessarily take that as, set in stone. I'm sure those are going to change, but I really liked that. I really doubt we're going to see people running the exact same stuff on every single gun, because you're going to, the recoil is different in the Division 2, at least from what we saw. I wouldn't say that it's like obnoxious, that it's bad, but it's definitely more noticeable. Like the lightweight M4 that I got to use. Now, I tried to play with all the guns at one point or another, but it definitely seems like, it's not just going to be the laser gun that you have currently. But that change with the attachments between it, you still are going to have to kind of grind, because you have to unlock them. But once you unlock them, they're unlocked for every gun in your inventory.
Right.
I really like that, because it's just simpler. There's parts of the game that are like needlessly complicated right now, or not complicated, but just tedious, or whatever the word is that you want to give it. And that's one of them to me. But especially the fact that each one has positives and negatives now is, I think, going to make a huge difference when it comes to just the variety of attachments used.
Absolutely. Go right into it, Splinter. What do you think? Are you excited about not having to worry about those in your inventory?
Yeah, there was so much in the demo where I felt like, okay, this just it feels like the gameplay is making more sense and it is streamlined. But anyone who is watching or listening that is like, oh no, they're simplifying everything for the casual gamer. I do not feel that is the case. I feel like they're taking things out that are just annoyances in the current game and streamlining those, but there's still going to be a lot of depth in this game. I'm not worried about that at all.
Does it feel like a lot more depth in the sense that a casual style player can dive in and figure it out easy? The rest of the time they'll be proficient, as opposed to kind of now with all the mods, it can get kind of complex and convoluted.
Oh yeah, I would say that a more casual player will probably be able to jump in, because things will feel a little more intuitive from the get-go. I feel like a casual player won't be like, oh my gosh, there's this huge learning curve to this game, and like, okay, I got to get over this, and then I can actually enjoy it. I feel like it's going to be enjoyable, from the get-go, but I don't think that just for all the people who are going like, oh no, it's going to just be for casuals. I don't think that's the case at all.
Excellent. I think that was a big turnoff to a lot of people. Is all these mods are dropping. These gear mods, these performance mods. Like, what do I use? How do I use it? There's been so many questions. What build does this work with? What gear set should I put?
Yeah,
this
and
on
which
with?
mods are worth keeping? Right. I remember having that, like, before I fully understood all of the mods in the current game. I remember making that call so many times, like, well, I'm not using this on any of my other guns, and I'm gonna get rid of this mod, or these 5 mods that I have. And then, like, later on finding out, like, oh no, actually that would have been a really great mod for that gun. Now I gotta grind for it again.
Yep, exactly.
And that kind of stuff. Yeah. I like it from that angle, absolutely.
Gamer Insanity, what do you think? Are you excited about this change?
I'm extremely stoked for the fact that, one, they're not going to be taking up my inventory space anymore. I really don't know how the unlock system's going to work just yet. I don't know if it's going to be based on, hey, you're going to go ahead and put this attachment on and get this many kills with it, it's going to unlock the next attachment. We'll have to wait and see how that works out in the future, or if it's going to be similar to maybe like the old school Call of Duty Black Ops system where you would use your credits and buy that attachment and it becomes unlocked from that point forward. We'll have to wait and see. I'm just really, really excited that it's no longer taking up my inventory space.
Yeah, but they're going to bring back weapon skins taking up your inventory space, so it's going to balance out.
No,
no, not that. All right, so let's move on to the last topic that I had, and that's the unknown right now, the Dark Zone. How do you guys think it's going to play out? Are we going to see some major changes to the Dark Zone? I'm excited to hear your guys' opinion. And a question that I've kind of put out there to the community is Rogue, as far as it pertains to the Division. Do we think we're going to see it work in the same way, or is it going to be like me and Major have discussed in the past? Do you think Rogue is going to go away? Are we going to just everyone in the Dark Zone is an enemy, and how do you think that's going to play out? Gamer Insanity, let me start with you. I know you're a big DZ guy. What do you think we're going to see as far as the Dark Zone in Division 2?
Okay. I actually met with Splinter Shield last week.
Oh, that's
and we
right.
were speaking a little bit about some certain things, and one of the main things that I said about the Dark Zone that I kind of think is going to happen is everybody was inspecting the demo and was like, oh, there's a Dark Zone wall. I wonder what's on the other side. What if you're already in the Dark Zone and
Yes.
you don't know it?
Yeah.
My most important theory that I've come up with is, similar to GTA Online, where you can kind of have like a toggle being like, hey, I want to participate in PvP or I don't. Instead of having a rogue mechanic where, like what we have now, it would be a situation of I can go do everything in this game world alone. I could do it with my party. We could take part in PvP. We don't have to. And having that simple toggle mechanic would allow you to then take part in PvP whenever, and you would never have that system, oh, I don't have to worry about someone going rogue on me, because that would merge the whole idea of having a PvE and PvP Dark Zone, and it would all be the entire map. Maybe the only thing outside the wall at this point would be, like the White House and the base of operations, something that would be much more tangible and something that is there for you to really use, and everything inside that wall is fair game for you to have just this big open world to play in.
Does that work in a format where, like, if you choose not to participate in PvP currently in GTA, are you on a different instance of the map than players that are participating on PvP, or are you just untackable? I've never played it, so I don't
I'm
know.
not sure of. But that is a good point to bring up. I mean, either way, I mean, the idea of being able to participate with others and just have the flip of a switch would make me think, okay, if it's going to be a 26 or 50 player map, whatever it's going to be this time around, it should be a decent mix of having, 15, 20 people always doing PvP anywhere in the map whenever they want. And if you're sitting over there and you're doing your landmark for PvE, it leaves them alone and they can continue doing whatever they want.
Okay.
Bond,
It
what
would
do you...
it would make
go
it so
ahead.
that you get to enjoy everything, while you have the casual players that are like, oh, I hate the Dark Zone. It's an unknown place. I always get ganked and this and that. They get to enjoy everything, while you still have the hardcore players that want to do PvP. they don't get left out by not having to do other things. Because I know there's a lot of people out there that miss being able just to shoot people whenever they want. You can't do it
Yeah.
anymore.
Right.
Well, and with Washington D.C., you inherently have that, verticality that we've heard talked about with Division 2, and kind of playing into what you're talking about. If we're already in the DZ and there's this PvP happening there already, if the interiors and the undergrounds and the playable spaces are kind of similar to what we saw with the way they did the Upper Dark Zone, you may never even run into those PvP groups if the instance size is manageable, which
Exactly.
could work.
And the other part from the demo that a lot of people are forgetting is as soon as they take the control point, they shoot off the flare.
Flare
Yes, they
gun.
own that zone now, but maybe there was more to that flare than you think.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
So
Yeah.
who knows?
Bond, what do you think? Dark Zone. What are your thoughts?
I think so. That's a debate I've had. So my relationship with the Dark Zone has evolved, and I was definitely one of those people that was terrified of it when the game first came out. I then eventually, especially when they removed the penalty for being a non-rogue and dying, I definitely found myself in there a lot, and that's when I found that whatever, if I die, I die. Who cares?
Yeah.
You learn to love
And I
it.
just started going. I learned to love it. I really did. And the thing I really did, and I've told people, because I'm definitely a primarily PvE person, but the misconception that I've seen that there's people who don't think I can comment on PvP, where every game I play other than the Division, I play PvP. I prefer it.
Right.
It's just I just don't really enjoy it in this game. And the thing I found is that I was a big proponent for Rogue 2.0. I thought it was really good for the game as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
The thing I will say is that I don't hate the toggle system. I get what its purpose is, but I actually kind of miss being able to just run up on someone and kill them. And I kind of no, but let me. Well, the thing I'll finish with that is that I think that because people have asked, and I'm not sure if we're going to see Rogue 2.0. Was it like a beta test, and we'll basically get that in Division 2, or Division 2? Will we get like a Rogue 3.0? Or will we see some kind of hybrid of some 2.0 things, some 1.0, the original system, or somewhere in the middle? And that's what I really think is probably going to happen. As for actually trying to guess what they're going to do with it, I have no idea.
Well, and kind of playing into what you said, like if you get a mix of the two, the way I always kind of saw it was, a lot of the outcry I heard from getting ganked was, oh, these guys would just run up from behind me and shoot me, and I would lose, item X that I really wanted. If we were going to mix the two, what about if that first person that you ganked didn't drop anything? That was just your way to toggle rogue. And then, from there on out, if you see rogues on avoid them. That to me would be kind of a middle ground to that, where you would prevent, well, I got ganked by guys behind me. But if we put a mechanic in place where, I run up behind Vaughn and I see him there and I shoot him and kill him, he doesn't drop anything. But now I'm rogue, which is what I wanted.
Okay.
Yeah.
The griefing there would be scary.
If you're the guy that,
Yes.
that gets downed by the guy who's now turned rogue, you keep any contaminated items that would still be in your inventory when you respawn.
No,
Or
you
just
would
drop
drop
private.
it. Yeah, they would all drop.
You would drop it, but they couldn't pick it up. You could go
Correct.
back and pick it up. Oh,
And
okay.
Yes, but then you'd have to. Then you would know where they're at. They're rogue. You could avoid them.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting. I kind of like that. Bon, did you have anything to add, or could I chime in now?
That was the gist of it. Yeah.
Okay. I'm someone who, I've always loved the Dark Zone. I haven't been a huge PvPer in the Dark Zone, but I've always loved it. I remember going into the Dark Zone right, early when the game launched, I think even before patch 1.1. And I was playing with DB Dave, who's in Australia. And it was a Sunday morning for me, so it was probably Monday night for him or something. But we were running around the Dark Zone together, and we were just constantly looking at our mini maps to see if there were any rogue indicators. If any rogue indicators are like, okay, let's go over to that street over there because we don't want to mess with those guys right now. We were trying to get loot. We were trying to gear up, and we're like, oh no, we don't want to get ganked. But just that, like having that feeling in a game of like, I'm scurrying around trying to avoid conflict, and then once you get geared up, then you're like, okay, now I want some conflict. Now I'm looking for some trouble.
Survival.
I think it's such a cool environment. There's been some people going like, well, are we going to have a dark zone? No. They have confirmed. They've confirmed that there's PvP in a dark zone. I'm sorry. I'm not even going to go down that road. But as far as in gamer insanity, I'm gonna don't in the dark zone for a couple of reasons, because I don't think that there's going to be settlements in the dark zone, like like these little protected areas where the NPC characters are kind of guarding the walls with guns, and they have like little farms on the rooftops or whatever. I don't think I don't think those are going to exist inside the dark zone. And we saw from one of the videos that dropped that there was a settlement like that they passed through before they came up on Air Force One.
Mm-hmm.
And so just from a purely lore point of view, I don't think that we're in the dark zone in the area that we're in this this kind of alpha demo that we're playing at E3. And the only other thing I can say about like what is the dark zone going to be, I know that we all know that Rogue 2.0 was being dreamt up by Terry and all them at Red Storm while Division 2 has been in development.
Mm-hmm.
And seems like it probably would have been a good idea for them to be talking to them about like, well, what's what kind of things are we gonna see in Division 2? They're different from Division 1. Maybe we can make this be a system that carries over. Maybe we can make this be a system, sort of like beta test this in Division 1 for Division 2. I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. And they have said some things about like they've said some vague things about this time the dark zone is going to be different because there's going to be some new things and different kind of things to do in the dark zone.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they said something about like you can steal resources or something. And I think resources are going to be like there's a thing at the end of the demo where you could signal for reinforcements at some point during as you're attacking the Air Force One control point. As you're trying to take these guys out, at some point you can signal for reinforcements, and the local people at the local settlement will come and help you against these NPCs. And at the end, the sort of like the leader of that group comes up to you and asks for supplies. And as you've been playing, like you're picking up various things. And so I went over to him and he was asking 100 of this and 100 of that and 100 of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I probably had like 36 of this and 27 of that. Like I didn't have enough to fully stock him. But I'm going like, maybe in the dark zone, we are finding, these supplies and packing them away or marking them for extraction or something, so that we can kind of dole them out to these survivors later on. And then they, as we help them out, they will help us out. Because it sounds like from all the stuff we've been reading that like you engage with the NPCs in some deeper ways. In that, like it's not like they just come up to you and ask you for some canned food and then they give you a pistol and some intel. It's going to go a little deeper than that. Like if you give them a bunch of supplies, then they can actually send some squads over to reinforce you and help you take out control points and all that kind of stuff. So I've probably gone on way longer than I needed to. But in terms of Dark Zone stuff. That might be some new stuff that we're doing in the Dark Zone, kind of like mining it for resources.
Yeah, I think you were touching on the settlements. It's something that's kind of piqued my interest, and I've talked a lot about it on Twitter, and still kind of theorizing what I think that might be. And I'm sure I'll talk about that more in some of the other roundtables. But the settlements are interesting to me. Like you said, giving them the resources. We've seen in the video and some of the streams where it says like the theater settlement has reached a milestone, almost like we're leveling these settlements up in a way, or giving them resources. And I've kind of theorized maybe also giving them civilians. Maybe when we're seeing in the demo where there is an execution about to take place, if we're rescuing certain individuals, that we might also be escorting to these settlements where, you know, whatever their skills might be might help these settlements level up as well. I've had some discussion with that, so I think that's interesting, and I do agree that I think that's probably in the light zone, but I think that's a dynamic where after Endgame that the light zone is, you know, a living, breathing thing as well. It's constantly changing, and we're constantly doing those types of missions within the light zone,
which I love.
Oh, absolutely.
I love that.
I mean, what if the map was cut up into 4 huge sections where every so often the Dark Zone actually changed?
Like the boundary of the Dark Zone would
Exactly.
expand, and then like you take back a control point, and it kind of retracts again.
Right. Like maybe that's how they'll do seasons.
Yeah.
I am intrigued.
That's interesting. I don't know if it would make sense, but I threw out the idea of what if these settlements are our safe houses, and if they lose control, then we lose the ability to fast travel until we go back and help take back that settlement. You know, as far as the vendors, what if there are vendors within that settlement, and if we want to take advantage of that vendor, if we don't go back and interact with them occasionally, and they lose those resources, or a faction comes in and retakes it, then I can't fast travel to that settlement until I go back there and help take it back over. I don't know if that's a thing, obviously, but I thought that would be an interesting way to keep that in-game grind going. I think there are going to be a lot of different components to in-game within the Division 2, and those settlements, I think, are probably just a small part of that in-game, living, breathing game. But it's going to be interesting to see.
It's actually kind of funny. One of the things I've always wanted in the Division's Dark Zone was the idea of having some sort of a bounty board, and I've brought this up to the devs in the past, where whenever you were in a checkpoint, you could have like this system where you could say, hey, I want to put a bounty on myself, I want to always be rogue, make me the highest setting, and have everyone come after me. If they kill me, they'll get this reward. I hope we get something like that in the Division 2.
Ooh, I like that.
That would be interesting, yeah. Absolutely.
Right.
And it's interesting, you know, because we did eventually get like the bounty caches and things like that, so I can kind of see where that kind of came into play, but it's not the full scope of what I hope for.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you, Gamer, were you, this is going back to our ETF, were you in the workshop when we discussed, I'm wanting to think that you were.
Yeah, I was in the Dark Zone discussion with you
so,
and like Butter and Denti and all them.
Yeah, and so as I'm sure you can kind of talk about as well, that initial kind of, you know, Rogue 2.0 idea that I had, that I gave it ETF, it kind of evolved in a different way, you guys have all heard me talk about before, as far as the toggling Rogue and the station that we had to go interact with to get that to go away. I think they're going to take a lot of those different things, and it's not exactly the Rogue 2.0 idea that I originally had, but it's kind of sort of in that direction. And I like exactly what you're saying, Gamer, because that kind of plays into it as well. Is when I had that idea originally, it was because I wanted to give PvE players something very specific to do, and PvP players that wanted to fight a reason to want to be rogue. And I think, you know, it might infuriate some of the community, but I think the rewards for doing those things, especially in the Dark Zone, should be very unique. So the original idea
I agree.
that I
felt
had,
like
it needed something to have us chase. If you wanted that, you know, that idea that I had of a rogue vanity set where it showed off that you were the badass rogue in the DZ, and you did something to get that, or if you wanted to be that DZ sheriff that took out the rogues, it was something very specific and unique to show that I'm doing something
Yeah,
very
like so
different.
you
than
come
you.
around the corner, somebody sees you, and they're like, "Oh shoot! If this guy isn't rogue right now, he might be in a minute."
Yeah.
Or, "Oh shoot, I'm rogue, and this guy coming around the corner looks like a guy who takes out a lot of rogues." You know, I
Yeah.
love that idea.
Yeah. So yeah,
I mean, the idea of having the Dark Zone as the place that gave the most special gear when the game started, obviously that's going to change significantly now that we have raids. I mean, that's where the big loot's going to be now. So
True.
the Dark Zone may become a little bit more of a casual place where PvEers and PvPers have a lot of interaction and a lot of unique things to do. But when it comes to that hardcore gear grind, that's going to be in the raids now.
yeah, and
So-
I'm not opposed to that, because you could do that, you know, kind of in the same way of the original idea that I had, that if you want these very specific vanity items for doing that Dark Zone PvP interaction, then the Dark Zone's where to get them. And just like you said, the raids
Yeah.
are where you're going to get that specific unique gear, weapons, those things. are
Like if
for
you
the
want that
raid. So that's-
exclusive exotic
absolutely.
P90 that we're all hoping for, you know, you got to go there.
Absolutely.
Oh,
If
yeah.
you want that rogue duster, then you got to go to Dark Zone and go rogue and you know, take on that challenge. I like that idea. That's kind of my questions. Major, do you have any questions, any topics you want to discuss before I throw it to these guys and to our chat? See if anyone wants to talk.
I got one question from a guy in our group. He messaged me, and it's kind of back to the specializations we talked about. And this is pure speculation. Obviously, we all know that, but I think we've all played RPGs enough to know that generally you have a healer, right? You have a healer that can keep people in the group alive and
Right.
up. And since healing skills are kind of gone per se for now, and as you guys said, you know, we're using more armor now. Do you think we'll see anything in the way of like a healer type specialization where they may have like a defib type pack similar
Like
to
an
what you saw with the
armorer or
NPCs?
something.
Yeah, like an armor repair, something to that effect. Kind of like we saw with the way the revives were in the game also. Or would you like to see something like that, since we are talking about an RPG shooter?
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if we see something like that. We know that the NPCs have the defib thing,
Mm-hmm.
so I wouldn't be surprised if we have some version of that ourselves. You know, in terms of having some kind of like reclaimer support station. You know, maybe that's what the support station turns into. It's a defib pack.
Mm-hmm.
So you go down, instead of having to respawn, no, this guy runs over, he does the defib on you, and you're up in a second, and you don't have to wait 15 seconds to respawn and run back
Mhm.
into the area of conflict.
Kind of like an
Um,
instant revive, or instant revive, maybe no health. Still got to use a med kit or something, or
Yeah,
armor repair
like it's
kit.
not instant, but you know, it's still better than the alternative of like you just have to wait so long to be able to respawn.
Mm-hmm.
If that was a thing in the demo, like you would go down and it's like, okay, you can respawn in 15 seconds or 20 seconds, you know, something. And so you respawn, but you're outside of the immediate area you're in, so you have to run back in. So like if you go down, like you're not there for your team for
Mm-hmm.
the better part of a minute or so.
Right.
So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a specialization where there's some kind of ability so that you can revive somebody on site
Mm-hmm.
rather than the alternative.
Yep. I think that's definitely a specialization we can hope to see.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be really important. I think I don't know. We don't know exactly how DPS and all that stuff is going to work. I think that's something that still remains to be seen as far as our weapons. But I think having that player that is a support player, a healing player, is going to play into the tactical part of it as well. You're going to have a player that's very focused on keeping his team healed and moving from player to player and supporting them, and it'll be the other player's job as far as being damage dealers to make sure that they're giving him, you know, cover fire and
Mhm.
doing those kind of things to keep him, you know, from being focused, where he can move between the team and give them the healing that they need. But I like Splinter Shield's ideas, the defib, that kind of stuff. I think is We haven't seen any skills. That's exactly what Joker Unique is saying in chat. We haven't seen any healing because it wasn't part of the demo, but I think we're going to see some type of iteration as far as a healer within the team. I enjoyed doing that during my time at ETF, running a Reclaimer heal build for like butter. Me and Drew stayed together, and I basically played his healer while he was the damage dealer in Last Stand, and it was a ton of fun. I just ran around and didn't attack very much. I just kept him healed, and he ran around and killed, and it was a fun time. So I think we'll see some variation of that. Any of you other guys have any thoughts on that?
Excellent.
Yeah, I actually have quite a bit on the Dark Zone. One thing that I would actually really like to see added to the Dark Zone in the Division 2 is something pulled from the game Escape from Tarkov. And in that game, you have a case where you can put loot, and when you die, it doesn't drop for other players to steal. So I think that would resolve the issue where you have PvE only players getting really upset over losing loot, but with that they could add different backpacks that you could equip for the Dark Zone, and it could allow you to carry more slots where your loot won't drop publicly, but you'll be able to carry less.
Right.
And some other stuff with the Dark Zone, I think we're going to see something on par with Rogue 2.0 with some of the demands that we've seen, like more manhunt terminals, probably. I don't have too much on that, but I really don't see them changing too much with the Rogue element unless
like Rogue
they allow
2.5 kind of a thing.
Yes, and if they do change something with the Dark Zone, I could actually see them potentially scrapping PvP in the game entirely and going on with something like you do a side quest, and that allows you to essentially moonlight as a true sun, which will unlock secret DZ entrances, and whenever you go in one of those entrances, you would be permanently flagged as a rogue. And then with the DZ, you might have stuff that's like point capture, and then you might have elements of resistance in there for the resources for shade tech, and you might have support stations that you can buff up for your team and have to retake all that over, kind of like merging Last Stand with the Dark Zone. And I think the potentially some of the new skills are really going to enhance the Dark Zone gameplay, and I would like to see more debuff skills, like more crowd control, something that would potentially increase an enemy's reload speed if they get hit by it. There was that immobilization skill in the gameplay reveal demo where the player got hit by foam and immobilized them, and they had to shoot it in order for them to move again. That'd be absolutely awesome if you saw an enemy player or even an NPC running out in the open. Boom, shoot them with that foam, and you'll be able to burn them down. That would be invaluable, and it's also a non-DPS skill. And I'd like to see how the skills are going to interact, or maybe they won't even interact at all with the new Elder Scrolls Online like gear sets. And the only other thing that I have to add about that, to make it short, is I would absolutely love to see a wandering vendor. A vendor that wasn't in the same spot, was wandering around the Dark Zone, and would either be carrying like the absolute top end gear that you could get. And then I don't know what
you have to find them. You have to track them down.
Exactly.
I like that.
I'm not sure if I'd actually want it different for each player's instance or different servers, because if somebody found them, they could easily just post it online, which kind of ruins the hunt. But the I would almost like to see it as it different for each individual player or each individual group, because I could instantly seeing that be something that players would camp, and there would be a lot of griefing behind that, and that's something. I mean, it's a great tactic. Me personally, I I'd love to have that scary factor, like, oh my god, I found the vendor, and then get nailed by a rogue sniper. But again, with it being in the dark zone, there's that great risk and great reward. Like, I'm almost to the vendor. This item is on sale for like a third of the price that you'd get in the light zone, but I'm probably going to get ganked. But then you could throw it in your special cache. We'll just call it the Escape from Tarkov cache, and then you could go extract that. And then also, I was thinking that if players had that in there, or had that type of cache, and they were being griefed by other players, maybe have like a degradation system. Like, you can only fast travel once, and then it turns a different color, and if you fast travel again, it gets destroyed, to help further prevent griefing. But that's the snowflake side of me talking. But I absolutely love the dark zone. I want there to be one. I rage quit it for a couple patches in Division 1, and I can say that I genuinely miss the old feel of the dark zone, but I understand and still enjoy Rogue 2.0.
Well, I kind of wonder, you know, and I maybe merge these two ideas together and kind of what you're talking about. As I've thrown it out there, I think it'd be really cool, and I know some people have said Warframe does something very similar, to where if you wanted to, you could opt into, you know, if there's the possibility that we get a Division 2 app on our phone, where we can manage inventory, all of those things that we would love to have, but also was a live app to where something happens within the game and we get an alert on our phone. So you know, if there is a boss that's in the dark zone or something, that, hey, you know, Sergeant Splinter Shield, leader of the hunters, is somewhere in the dark zone, and it alerts us. And
the leader of the hunters' name is Spearhead.
But
I've already decided.
But it's a timed thing, maybe for 24 hours, where he's in the dark zone, and it kind of gives you a general idea of where he might be. But we can get on, we can go find him, we can kill him, and we can get those rewards. And kind of what you're talking about, Bicycle, as far as having a very specific vendor, maybe that can work in the same way, where the special vendor is in the dark zone for 24 hours. And instead of him being in a roaming place, in order to kind of mix that merge of risk reward as far as PvE and PvP, is instead of a flare gun that we shoot into the air, maybe we drop a flare on the ground, like a red flare, and that has a timer, and once that timer goes off, he shows up. So it's still kind of like you're saying, it's possibly initiating PvP, because if people see that flare, you know, maybe not alerted on the map, but if you're, you know, as far as the mini map, but maybe if it's a red smoke flare, people that are in that general area might see that red smoke going off, and they think, well, somebody's calling in for the vendor. I can see the smoke. Let's see if we can find it. But you are sitting there waiting for him to show up to get those rewards. I don't know. I think all of us have great ideas. I love that idea. I think it would be fun to have something very interactive in a phone app that's letting us know certain things are happening. You know, like I said, as far as high value targets, like wanted targets within the game that we need to go and get, or things like that, would be really interesting.
If you're able to summon that vendor, that's something that people could also use as a tactical advantage in just placing that flare away from an extraction zone to go extract. Yeah,
absolutely. And I love your idea. I've thrown out the idea of having a very kind of Escape from Tarkov focused DZ, and I get it. Some people don't like that idea, because
I love that game.
If you've ever played Escape from Tarkov, you only take in what you're willing to lose. So I get it as far as the DZ. People don't want to take their best gear, but in the DZ, also, if you think about it, let's look at it as far as bosses within the DZ. If you only take in a pistol or something like that, taking down a boss in the dark zone in Division 2, the way that it's looking, would be very hard. But if you take your best gear, you have the best chance to kill him. But if somebody sneaks up behind you, they could kill you and take your stuff as well. I see Kaylee in chat. She does not love the idea of losing all of the gear that she's grind for. And I get it. But I think that, to me, that intensity within Escape from Tarkov is really unique. And even if we don't go that route, I really like Splinter Shield's idea, or I'm sorry, Bicycle's idea, because we've already had that basically in the past with pieces that drop private and pieces that drop public. Just give us the opportunity, or us the decision, to decide if we pick up 8 pieces, what 2 pieces do we want to make private that we don't lose, and the other stuff we're willing to lose. So I'm okay with that idea.
Well, and I think you and I have talked about this before as a hardcore, if you will, DZ. And that's kind of where our original conversation came from, getting rid of the entire like rogue visibility thing. And I mean, that would even be something that I would like to see added down the road as a DLC or something. Maybe you have a hard DZ where you have that Tarkov-esque container where, you know, I've got 6 gear pieces, I've got 3 guns. Maybe I can protect, you know, 2 pieces of gear and 1 of my guns in the container or something like that. But that's something that could be possible down the road.
Yeah.
Would you guys be willing to sacrifice what survival was for that?
I think survival is built in for that Escape from Tarkov type feel, right? I mean,
Agreed.
it has that initial terror of I came in here with a gun, but if I kill a couple of these, you know, wandering AI, I can get a few more weapons. I can get a little bit of gear, and I think that's ready made for a hardcore DZ experience. And it already has that no rogue time. There's no rogue indicator there, right? Everybody you run into could be a friend, could be a foe. The AI they're not really so much scattered. They're in pockets. So, I mean, you can avoid them if you move smart. You know, you can pick your engagements. You can use the AI to your favor to trap other players. So, I mean, the survival DZ mechanic is already in place. It would be fun to see that as a server or a mode also.
I wonder what the player base would feel if you were able to choose which gear you went into a survival match with, and you also had the potential of losing that gear. Or you could choose to go in with starting off with just a pistol and craft your way up or loot your way up.
Yep.
Yeah, I like that idea as well. I think even if you did it as far as like, you know, survival with how we have it, or what their vision is for survival in Division 2, with the added mode of like kind of like what Major is saying, maybe a hardcore survival where we pick our loadout that we're willing to go in and fight with. But it is that escape from Tarkov. If there is something that's really desirable in survival, if there is an exotic P90 that everyone is chasing, and we get an alert, the exotic P90 is in hardcore survival for the weekend, and you have to decide what you're willing to take into that survival match to try to get that P90. And if you die, just like survival, all of that equipment is gone.
Well, you could even do it if it was a mode and not a. You enter survival, you know, it carbon copies your gear you have on your character, and then from there you have that set of gear to pick from, and then if you lose it in survival, but maybe you don't lose it in the game. Then, you know, kind of a standalone type mode like that in the mold of Tarkov too.
Right. Well, almost the same way in Tarkov, where you can put insurance on gear. Like, you could put the insurance. You might come up with a loadout that you can insure those pieces, and maybe that's where another currency comes into vision as far as Division 2. Maybe we're insuring that survival or hardcore survival gear. It might be a loadout that you build specifically for that event and insure those pieces as well. And when you go into survival, if you die, that insurance doesn't guarantee that you're going to get them back, but it at least gives you the possibility that gear will be returned to you. So yeah, I think there are a lot of interesting ways that you could do something like that, and that's what this is all about. I love these discussions with you guys. But before we get ready to head off, if you guys have anything else you want to speak on real quick, and I'll throw it out there to everyone that's hanging out in chat. Thank you all for hanging out. If you want to, just let me know in chat. If you want to jump in the Discord, we can post that, and you can give us your questions or thoughts, opinions on what we talked about before we get ready to wrap it up. We've been going for almost 2 hours, and I don't want to keep these guys for too long. I appreciate them hanging out with us for a few hours and discussing Division 2. So
especially on their Saturday.
Absolutely, on a Saturday. But Bond, Bicycle, Splinter Cell, anything else? It looks like we lost Gamer and Sandy. I think he had to bounce out. But anything else you guys want to touch on before we get ready to head out? Just throw it out there.
The only thing that I can really think that I'd want to touch on is how common was that immobilization foam with NPCs, and also did we have access with that at all? I haven't seen any of the E3 videos, so.
You're asking how common in the NPCs were the guys with the immobilization?
Yes.
So in the demo, when we're attacking the control point, you go up against a few different waves of these True Sons characters, and in each wave they had one or two guys with that immobilization foam. Now, in the video that they showed in the Microsoft conference, when he was hit, when the player was hit with the foam, another player had to shoot at the foam in order to loosen it up so that the other player could escape. In the demo, when we got hit with the foam, it would just stick us in place for like a second or two, and then we were able to just kind of break ourselves out of it. So I don't know if that was something, we don't know how that's going to be in the final game, but it was fine in the game. In the demo, it was fine. You're like, oh shoot, I'm immobilized, I'm out of cover, but you were able to break yourself out of it before too much time went on, and so it was okay. I didn't feel like it affected gameplay too much. I think if it was more like in the Microsoft conference video, it could be problematic at least for some players, where they'd be like, this really sucks getting hit with the foam. So I don't know. We'll see. I'm sure they're going to balance things out, and I'm sure whatever we saw in the demo is going to be tweaked. So I wouldn't read too much into it, but that's how it was.
Awesome.
Thanks for the feedback, sir.
Bon, anything else you want to touch on before we head out of here, buddy?
Not really. I think I talked enough.
All right, Major. Anything else, buddy?
I don't really have anything.
Awesome.
I have one more thing.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Matt.
Because before I was just kind of responding to Bike's question. So from the very beginning, when they did that logo reveal for Division 2, I noticed, and a lot of other people were like, Shield, did you notice? And I was like, yes, I did, how there was this distortion effect, and it made me instantly think of Hunters. Mm-hmm. And we saw nothing of Hunters in any of the videos or any of the demo or anything. And I wouldn't expect there to be. I wouldn't expect there to be much of anything story related. But I will say that when we were sitting around at E3, I was sitting there with Terry, and at one point he did bust out. He just kind of said, "How can we top the Hunters for Division 2?" And I had some things to say to him, and talk to him a little bit about that. So I'm just letting you guys know that I'm keeping an eye on that very closely, and certainly wouldn't be surprised if we were seeing. I'd actually be more surprised if we don't see anything further of the Hunters in Division 2.
I would certainly hope we do. I mean, it's the one element we still know nothing about, right? I mean, we have a backstory even on Keener. We have it on all the factions. We have it on Bliss, but we don't know anything about the Hunters. We still don't know why they're there and why they want the agents dead. So let's do it.
Yeah. One of the things I pointed out, which I'm sure if they're going to be in Division 2, I'm sure it's already been discussed. I'm sure it's not something they're working out now. But one of the things that one of the points I pointed out was like, look, in the trailers and stuff that we've seen so far for Division 2, there's been a lot of talk about like betrayal from within, and sort of the government turning on the people, kind of a thing, or at least a faction, like sort of the old guard or the deep state or something, kind of turning on the people. And for those of you who've read my hunter theory, you know that that's kind of what I think the hunters are. I think that they are sort of this compartmentalized section of the division who their function is basically to take out rogue agents, because whoever set up this Directive 51 and the whole SHD had to realize that at some point somebody would not want to give up their power, or somebody would abuse their power, one of these agents. And so they would have to have some kind of way of dealing with that. And I think that's what the hunters are. But I think that it's probable that they've kind of just been co-opted and have been given orders just to take out all agents, at least in survival. They've just been told, okay, we're just taking out all agents for some reason. Anyway, so I was just saying, like, hey, you know, the hunter theory dovetails very nicely with kind of these themes that we're seeing in Division 2 story-wise. So we'll see what happens.
That'll be interesting. I like
Nice.
I like the betrayal from within. I think I've got a pretty good idea of what the betrayal from within is referring to. And in my opinion, it's got to be Fei Lao. I think the eye patch and the leg injury has been put on for a long. I think that's a whole cover up. There's no way that injury lasts that long. No, that's a joke. Well, all right. I appreciate you guys joining me. Real quick, let me let you guys give a shout out to where they can find you on Twitter, your YouTube, your Twitch, Bond. Let everyone know where they can find you.
You can find me on, let's see, Twitter, YouTube, Twitch. I think that's it, as Bond Diesel, and then on Instagram as Bond Diesel _Twitch.
Awesome. Excellent. I know you guys are already following. If you're not, go and check out Bond's stuff. I'm sure he's got a lot of interesting things in the pipeline. Go check out his YouTube videos, all of that stuff. Follow him on Twitter, Twitch, and Instagram as well. Matt, Splinter Shield, let everyone know where they can find you.
Splinter Shield on Twitter. It's missing an E. It's missing the first E there. Splinter. So it's Splinter Shield. And then I'm on Twitch as just Splinter Shield, and I'm on Instagram Splinter Shield.
Awesome. Bicycle of Death, let everyone know where they can find you.
You can find me in central Wisconsin crying in the bathroom when I get owned in the DZ staring at floor textures. And on just about every social media platform, I am Bicycle of Death, all one word, all spelled out. My Twitch, however, is Bicycle of DTH. There are no vowels in death. And thank you for having me. I greatly appreciate this opportunity, sirs.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Major, let everyone
Yes,
know where
sir.
they can find you at, buddy. I appreciate you co-hosting. I appreciate you helping me get this together. Let everybody know where they can check you out at.
No, definitely glad to be here. You guys can find me on Twitter, or our Discord group on Twitter is Sherpa Co Gaming. It's a place that we've put together with the help of some of these fine folks here to promote a positive gaming environment, kind of contrary to the salt we're all seeing in some of the communities around the gaming world. We welcome everybody in there to come in, have a good time, and meet up.
Absolutely. I'll post all of y'all's Twitters and all those things, and Sherpa Co Gaming as well. I appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out. Everyone in chat, thank you for hanging out as well. We're going to be doing a few others of these roundtable discussions. We've got a long time leading up to Vision 2, and this is what I really love, is interacting with the community, speculating, and talking about the things that we that will be interested in seeing leading up to the game. As far as my experience with this, the developers and all of the guys over at Massive Red Storm are always listening to what we're saying. So put your thoughts out there. They're always checking them out, and it can lead to some really cool things in Division 2. So I appreciate everyone hanging out. I'll be posting when we're doing the next one. It'll probably be, I would say we'll probably try to do one of these maybe once a month as we lead up and hopefully get more information. I don't foresee us getting any Division 2 information in the next few weeks, but we'll do another one of these real soon. So You can find me. Obviously, you guys know where to find me over on Twitter at Game with Weezer. Pretty much everywhere at Game with Weezer, except for on PlayStation at Just a Weezer. And I appreciate everyone hanging out. And we are going to get off, and I'm going to go play some games. I don't know about you guys, but I'm ready to play.
Survival Saturday.
Oh, there it goes.
Shameless
Watch out for
plug.
Splinter.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for hanging out. I'm going to, real quick, if you don't mind, I'm going to jump over and I'm going to find somebody that's streaming the Division on Twitch and throw a host over to them if you guys want to. Join that raid, and we'll throw some love to someone in the Division community that's playing. And thank you, everyone, for hanging out, and we will see you real soon.
Have a good one.
Yeah, let's see. Who is playing? Who is playing? I want to find someone on Division that is on down the list. This is always dangerous who you're going to host, especially I don't see anyone that I'm currently following that's playing, but I'm going to do it anyway. Let's see. Major, are you still in here? This can always be scary. Oh, here we go. Little Bird is on. Let's throw the host over to Little Bird.
Here we go.
Let's do that. All right, that room and that. I think that's his. Let's do it. You guys want to go ahead and join that raid? We're going to jump over and check out and see what Little Bird's doing. Definitely a character within the Division community. He's awesome. And thank you all for hanging out. We'll talk to you soon. I already said all that.
I like this song.